Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very thankful first to my dearest friend, Datuk Profesor Muhammad Faiz Abdullah. Pak, terima kasih Pak untuk kesempatannya. To be able this evening to chair this group for some closing remarks, closing reflections of what happened in the last 3 days. I'm grateful to Pak Faiz for that. Well, to broaden the topic that we have had for the last 2 days, allow me to talk about a little bit about the future and what I think we have to pay attention to. Well, first, I would like to argue that we need an RCEP Leaders Summit in the future, and hopefully in the near future. The last in-person RCEP Leaders Summit took place in 2019 during the final negotiation phase prior to the agreement's signing. Since entering into force in January 22, RCEP has lacked any leadership-level engagement to guide its implementation, assess its performance, or set its strategic trajectory. Without a refreshed leadership mandate, especially given the current global coeconomic dynamics, the initiative risks stagnation. A new summit is essential to renew political energy, set clear objectives, and realign members around shared priorities of the agreement in this changing world environment. It also is an ideal time to reassess priorities before the first official review of the agreement in 2027. The world trading system has undergone significant fragmentation, primarily due to resurgence of U.S. protection and in the so-called Liberation Day tariffs plan has reignited tariff barriers targeting many key RCEP members, including ASEAN countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and others, which has previously benefited from exporting to the U.S. This unilateral action has been weakening multilateral trading system, which has been a backbone for open trade arrangements in this region. In such a landscape, regions must coordinate internally to defend their interests. A coordinated response by RCEP, economists at the leadership level is essential, not only to maintain open trade, but to show that Asia-Pacific integration is still moving forward despite global challenges. ASEAN has shown interest for joint responses. For example, the May 2025 ASEAN Summit featured a strong joint statement condemning protectionism trade policies and calling for keeping open trade environment. ASEAN also set up an ASEAN geoeconomic task force, which was mentioned in the recent ASEAN leaders' statement on reopening to global economic and trade uncertainties. The task force is tasked to assess the impact of current global dynamics to the region and to formulate policy recommendations to help ASEAN navigate emerging challenges and maintain economic stability. However, these responses remain largely confined to the 10 ASEAN member states. The effect of excessive trade diversion due to increased U.S. tariffs, such as from China into ASEAN markets or among ASEAN countries, can also be damaging. It is placing strain on local industries, widening trade imbalances. Worse, it may even fuel mistrust between neighbors that might lead to increased trade barriers in the region. What is needed now is not just ASEAN collective response, but an expanded framework of cooperation that includes the rest of East Asia and the Pacific. RCEP platform is the natural setting for such action. The platform offers institutional potential for collective backfilling of global trade governance when the WTO is weakened. An East Asia Pacific approach brings scale, shared rule-making capacity, and policy alignment along diverse economies. Moreover, a regional mechanism can address growing issues of unfair competition, redirecting exports, and overlapping trade remedies. Without such cooperation, ASEAN's internal market risks fragmentation as member states impose uncoordinated safeguards, anti-dumping duties, or subsidies. A summit would allow leaders to agree on shared guidelines to avoid trade conflict within the bloc. RCEP's greatest strength lies in its untapped potential. Although its first phase focused on tariff elimination, it was always intended to evolve beyond such agreement on trade in tariff and goods. The agreement includes an economic and technical cooperation chapter, a review mechanism for upgrades, and flexible clauses for new negotiations. However, without political leadership to drive this evolution, progress has been slow. The Leaders' Summit could prepare for a second phase of RCEP to include rules on digital trade, sustainable trade, and services, as well as to future simplify rules of origin. Bringing this ambition into RCEP under ASEAN's leadership would position it as the future central rule-making platform in the Asia-Pacific that would support economic development and stability in the region. Over the past few years, ASEAN's role as a driver's seat of regional economic cooperation has come under quiet pressure. ASEAN states seem to lose interest in RCEP and have prioritized ASEAN plus one FTAs, such as upgrading agreements with Australia, China, or other partners. While these new deals are valuable for promoting business development in this region, they may create complicated noodle bowl issues, which are supposed to be addressed by RCEP and dilute regional coherence. The RCEP Leaders Summit, ideally convened during the 47th ASEAN Summit in October 2025, offers a chance to re-anchor ASEAN at the center of East Asia economic architecture. As the original convener of RCEP, ASEAN can demonstrate its capacity to lead not just internal integration, but also the broader multilateral responses to global disruption. This would strengthen ASEAN's position amid the geopolitical and geoeconomic uncertainty. Let me try to also to imagine what could happen during the RCEP leaders meeting in the future. First, it could declare a joint declaration, a formal leaders' communique, restating rules-based trade in the region in the face of global protectionism and weakening multilateral trading system. Second, expand RCEP's reach into important new areas of digital trade, green standards, and subsidy disciplines. Commit to an RCEP Leaders Summit every 2 years as a standing mechanism to oversight and renewal. Summit leaders could mandate RCEP Joint Committee and RCEP Support Unit to start implementing monitoring. Produce scorecards on the implementation of RCEP at national and regional level. Monitoring regional trade and supply chain situation. Monitor the impacts of trade shocks, such as the recent U.S. trade policy. Leaders could instruct ministers and senior officials to begin a second phase of economic integration under RCEP on priority issues like digital trade and data governance for e-commerce, cross-border data flows, and cyber security, environmental goods and sustainability, subsidy transparency, competition rules, and investment screening. RCEP is equipped by commitment for economic and technological cooperation in order to bridging developing gaps among members and ensure the benefit of economic integration to be more inclusive. However, this profession remains underdeveloped with few shared priorities. Expected output should be announcement of regional pilot programs such as SME integration, digital SME integration, green supply chains, and capacity building. Technical cooperation program on trade and investment facilitation under RCEP to strengthen regional demand. Last but not least is to reaffirm ASEAN centrality and leadership. Repositioning ASEAN as a core of RCEP's governance and infrastructure, with outputs include renew commitments to ASEAN-led RCEP Secretariat support and funding. Mandates encouraging all RCEP countries, especially Australia, China, Japan, and Korea, to affirm ASEAN centrality and deeper integration. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the ideas I have and try to explain because of the new challenges we are facing in this region. I hope that ASEAN will take the lead in these efforts. And I hope that the partners, namely China, Japan, Korea, are okay. Australia and New Zealand will take this in stride and cooperate together with ASEAN in the future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.